Welcome back to a brand new live reaction stream. Divisional round Saturday just ended. We got the 49ers beating the Packers 24-21, and the Ravens beating the Texans 34-10. At least we got one great playoff game that we
Yo,
saw. Riv, your auntie, you want to say something? What is it that you
no,
want to
what
say?
you see? Did you see Ant-Man miss those three free throws?
I was locked in on a playoff game.
Oh, okay,
I saw that. I saw that, Riv. Don't worry. I saw that.
that shit was fucking all three was nuts.
Now, I actually have a question. You're talking about Ant-Man free throws, clutchness in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
Um, After Jason Tatum missed that game winner last night, Dehls
Ooh.
Dehls posted this stat of Tatum being great in these clutch situations. What is it that he shoots in the fourth quarter again, Dehls? Do
It's
you
like
have the exact
50%
percentage?
from the field. I could
same
find it.
fucking-
Is it just me or I haven't seen that?
mm.
Where are these numbers coming from? Where are these
I've
game
seen
winners
him hit
coming
a-
from?
I've seen him hit a few shots against my Lakers,
This
unfortunately.
so this was from February of last year. This was after he hit that 3 against Philly.
That
Tatum
it.
was the only player in NBA history to shoot at least 50% on game tying or go ahead shots with less than 24 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter among players with at least 25 such attempts.
Because every game I've seen this year, I haven't seen those.
What about
shots
the game
from him.
about against Minnesota against Ant, where Ant didn't do anything in the overtime fourth quarter, and Jason Tatum
Oh,
dropped
SGA also
26?
had 33.
What about the first matchup when Edwards locked up
Oh,
Tatum
when we
and then
didn't when we didn't
Edwards
have
and McDaniels
Derek
took
White
over?
because he was expecting a
Oh,
child.
you mean this game when they didn't have Rudy Gobert, one of the best
Doesn't
interior
move me.
defenders in
Doesn't
basketball?
move me.
We all know why we're here right now. The 49ers just beat the Packers 24-21. And I was the only one bold enough to pick the Packers in this game. You guys made the right decision. All you guys picked the 49ers to win this game. I don't feel bad about the pick, not one bit. This game was close all the way down to the wire. There were moments in this game where you said the Packers look like they're going to win. And I will say a couple things really impressed me. The Packers run defense impressed me. CMC did have one go away run, but for the most part, they play solid run defense. I told you guys the 49ers run defense is susceptible, and Aaron Jones had a big time day. But in the second half, man, listen, that defense making stops. Anders Carlson missed field goal, which could have put them up a touchdown. He's been the worst kicker in football this year. He's a rookie. He gets some leeway, but at some point, you got to upgrade. And then Jordan Love down the stretch. I mean, first half, incredible. Second half, he started off well. But the inaccurate pass that led to an interception led to a Niners field goal. Then on third down, they failed to convert. Love stepped up in the pocket. He missed Aaron Jones to the left. That would have been a first down. And then on the last drive, you're playing superhero. You're trying to win the game with one play, and he throws into double, triple coverage, and it's an interception.
Down 3.
The Packers lost, but no Packers fan should be feeling bad about the season they just had. I mean, they checked off so many things. They're the youngest team in NFL history to make the playoffs, and Jordan Love proved that he's the franchise quarterback moving forward. It's as simple as that. The 49ers won. Brock Purdy has some moments where the defenders could have made some plays on some bad passes, but he ultimately came up great at the end. That final drive, that's been the question about him. And that's been the question about the 49ers. They have not won a game trailing 5+ points in the fourth quarter. That first one comes with Brock Purdy. So him being better than Jimmy G and being able to have a playmaking gene is what got them this win. That second down conversion in the red zone where he got them to third and short when there's no edge to defend him on a quarterback run, but you really don't expect that. He had the game-winning drive, and all credit should go to the 49ers and how they executed, and him really answering a lot of questions, man. This was the best game that we've seen in the playoffs so far. This was one of the best games I've seen all year. And 49ers moving on, but the Packers should not feel bad about this loss, not even one bit. This was as close as it gets.
Riv, do you want to talk? I'll happily talk, but if you want to talk, I'll allow it.
I don't listen. I thought it was a good game from what I seen. I liked what I seen from the Green Bay Packers. I liked defensively how they were in the first half. I definitely like the fact that they was able to run the ball. Joel, you were definitely spot on with that. I want to give Joel his props because he definitely was hit the money on Green Bay for sure. I thought this would be a bigger lead than what it was, but it was a close game to the end. And you're right, definitely had some thoughts in my brain throughout the game. Like, are they going to pull this one out? Are they going to win? Is Green Bay going to, is this going to be a Cinderella story? It was giving me that vibe for sure. But second half, and even like the Niners defense, becoming so clutch in the red zone, getting stops. Like they could have been up 14 points in the first half, if not for the Niners defense getting some stops in the red zone. And he did have an interception. I felt like Jordan Love threw it a little bit behind Kraft, for that interception. Could have been a better ball. But for the most part, Jordan Love played cool. This was his second big test. Dallas was a test, but the Niners in San Fran, that's a different beast for sure. In the second half, you mentioned it. Brock Purdy wasn't good all game. I tweeted it. He was stinking it up for sure. That's my twin, but he was playing like shit. He wasn't able to hit a couple guys on some easy routes. He was overthrowing a few dudes. The pressure was definitely getting to him. But I'm just fucking glad we can throw away the narrative that when he plays from behind, he's not clutch. Because now, if not throw it fully away, we can put it to bed for another week, because what he did in the last drive, went 4 for 5, wouldn't have went perfect if George Kittle would have caught that easy one. But especially when he made that little run, I started oozing again. But Brock Purdy was definitely he started doing his thing late drive. He had to. He wasn't playing good for the first damn near all quarters up into that last drive. He had some good throws here and there. But shout out to Fred Warner, shout out to Dre Greenlaw, and the Niners. I feel like they took the Packers for granted a little bit, and the Packers definitely showed the world that they're here to stay. They're one of the youngest teams. They got a lot of talent on the roster. So shout out to the Packers. They had a great season, but the Niners, they move on to play the Lions or Tampa Bay.
Mr. Deli?
This was a great game. This was the one game I said that I thought the underdog could have a real chance of winning. I felt really good about Baltimore. I feel good about the picks for tomorrow. But I think a lot of people are getting caught up in the Jordan Love last throw, the Jordan Love 2 interceptions. They were bad throws. The first one, inaccurate to a little check down. The other one was just uncalled for. The Brett Favre image came to my mind the second that throw went just across his body, because he's kind of been getting Brett Favre comparisons, of course, being from Green Bay, being a gunslinger, having the big arm, being able to throw from different platforms. So it was kind of funny. Obviously, I'm not a Packers fan, but from an outsider's view, that's how it ended. But I think Joel hit it that Packers fans were playing with house money here. You want to go into this game, and the way this game was going, you were in it to the very end. And of course, you want to pull that out, go to the NFC Championship. And if you're going up against a division rival in Detroit or Tampa Bay, there's a real chance you go to the Super Bowl. And the way that Jordan Love had been playing up till this point, he probably would have been the best quarterback in both of those matchups, going up against Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield. Unfortunately, they came up short here. I really thought the 49ers, it was an ugly game. They had 2 big plays to get those touchdowns. The first one was a beautiful ball to George Kittle. I want to give him credit. The other one, CMC just made an incredible play. He broke multiple tackles. Looked like he should have got tackled, less than 10 yards. Instead, he goes for a 35-yard touchdown. So I really thought the Niners were relying on a couple of big plays to get their offense going, because outside that final drive, it was a lot of, 3 and outs, a lot of punts, inaccurate down the field. I thought Brock Purdy really struggled tonight, whether it was the rain. He did mention the rain in the post-game interview, that it's not an excuse, but it was bothering him. We saw him take the glove, have the glove on, had it off. It really reminded me of the Miami game against the Chiefs, where I did not trust Tua to throw the ball down the field, and I really didn't trust Brock Purdy to throw the ball down the field. Had a couple big plays, though. That one ball to Brandon Ayuk, sensational throw, sensational catch.
Dimer.
The defender's hand was right in the middle of it. I have no idea how he caught that. So I made a couple plays down the stretch. But overall, this was not the Niners offense that I was expecting. I thought Kyle Shanahan, given a week off with this bye week, was going to come in and have something be able to cook up and get Brock Purdy in rhythm, because that's what he is. He is this rhythm quarterback where once he completes a couple throws and he gets his confidence going, you see the difference, because earlier in this game when he wasn't, consistently getting completions, I feel like it was messing up his confidence. His eyes were dropping at times, and throws that he was making earlier in the season, he wasn't making tonight. But the Niners, I did think they were the better team coming into this game. There was a lot of pressure on them. I tweeted it right before the Brock Purdy drive. If he doesn't go down the field and score a touchdown, there's going to be serious conversations about what the 49ers should do at quarterback going forward. And on the other side, I was wondering if Jordan Love goes down the field here, this is like the beginning of a legend, the birth of a legend. If he goes down the field in San Francisco in the rain and gets this, we know they're already talking about contract extension for him. So the ramifications these final 2 drives had were crazy. But I am happy for San Francisco that they moved on, because this is their season. Like, San Francisco, this entire regular season, none of it mattered. The number one seed did not matter. All of the all pros and all of this had because they had been in this situation year after year. They've been to Super Bowls. They've been to AFC or NFC championship games, but they haven't been able to get the championship. So now it's one step closer. They're going to be at home facing Tampa Bay or Detroit. They'll probably be a touchdown favorite in both of those games and have a real chance to get back to the Super Bowl.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. You want to go?
No, have fun.
I was kind of pissed off today because I felt like more than anything, the Packers lost this game. They came in the first quarter, they had 3 drives to 10 plus plays. They're moving the ball. They're winning the time possession battle. But Joel highlighted in a tweet, when you're an underdog, you have to win on the margins. Today, they had a dropped interception by Darnell Savage that could have been a touchdown. They had 3 red zone trips. One was a turnover and downs, 2 were field goals. And so in spite of Green Bay controlling the entire first half, they found themselves down 7-6 in the third quarter. Then Debo leaves the game, right? The 49ers are missing one of their 3 best weapons. And it seems like everything opens up for the Packers, right? They immediately score, make it a 13-7 game. And you're like, okay, they've got the lead now. Brock Purdy playing from behind. You're feeling good. This is where you want San Francisco playing from behind. They immediately hit a big chunk play to George Kittle. And then a couple plays later, Dehls laid out perfectly. Beautiful run by CMC. Breaks 3 tackles, takes it to the house. After that touchdown for San Francisco to get the lead, what does Green Bay get? A 65, 70-yard punt return by Keyshawn Nixon. He then fumbles. It's recovered by, I think it was Eric Wilson. One of the biggest plays of the game.
One of the plays of the game.
It saved the Packers' chances of winning. Yeah. Then Green Bay ends up scoring because Matt LaFleur dials up some of the best play designs. He's doing trips right. He's throwing off this San Francisco secondary. Jordan Love's making good reads to Tucker Kraft, and then Aaron Jones, the 2-point conversion. So now the Packers are up 21-14. And then the 49ers immediately get a field goal because Jordan Love throws a terrible ball, awful ball to Luke Musgrave. It was good concept, right read, but it was behind him. It was so high. When you're 6'5", you don't have to like lob it to him. I felt like he could have put it on him. And that was what changed the entire game. That turnover right there, to me, that was their second turnover, basically. That was what gave San Francisco all the momentum at home. And then at the end of the game, San Francisco kills the clock. And I wonder, for as good of a play designer as Matt LaFleur is, if he should have called the timeouts and the 2-minute warning to try to get a last stands. At the end of the day, I kind of felt like he made a good decision, giving Jordan Love 3 timeouts to get a field goal. But we all knew, I at least felt, when Andres Carlson went out there, I did not think he was making that field goal. One of my friends, a Packer fan, watched the game. Like, I don't feel good about him making this one. The first 2 field goals, I think, were 29 yards. I'm like, I don't like this at all. And then he shanks it completely. I'm like, oh, not surprised. So they kind of came out with the impression we have to score a touchdown this last drive. And that's probably why Jordan Love played so aggressive and ultimately made a crazy throw across his body. But Green Bay sold. San Francisco not play their best game. They came out a little bit flat defensively. And I felt like, while it's good to see him in the NFC Championship game, I'm happy for Brock Purdy to get that big win. He's a very likable player. I really want to see the Packers get this win and play the Lions in the NFC Championship game. And I felt like Packer fans should be a little bit disappointed, even though the future here is clearly pretty bright.
Mr. Moran, let me ask you, how are we feeling about the play calling today?
I think it was good.
I just want to get a glimpse of how you're feeling. Personally, I felt similarly. I thought the play calling on the Packers side of things was pretty spot on. Mr. Tortorelli, you said that this is a bad one on the Packers. I'm having a tough time with that one because you look at the weakness of the Packers coming into this one. It was their defense. Their defense played pretty well. You can also pair that with the fact that Brock Purdy was pretty shaky outside of that 1 touchdown drive early on in the game where he dropped that right in the breadbasket for George Kittle. Just didn't seem to be on his game, felt a little shaky, even on one of those 3rd down conversions to Ayuk, where he kind of throws it a little bit too low and Ayuk has to go down, make a grab, and of course he gets a little bit more yak after that. But I don't know, man, I'm having a tough time blaming the Packers on this one. I say that with the idea that coming into the second half, you score 2 touchdowns off rip. You have a lead. Something about playing with a lead, especially going up against the San Francisco 49ers. This should be right in your breadbasket. This should be right up your alley because the Niners have been known, notoriously under Shanahan, to not be able to come through in the moments when they're behind. And you guys already laid it out. That throw was behind for sure. That led to an interception. And it's unfortunate because it's been the first mistake that Jordan Love has made in weeks. I want to throw that out there first. First mistake that he has made in weeks. And it's just unfortunate it came at that time. And then, of course, you get that interception. But then the defense is still able to hold up. They're still able to hold up, only hold them to 3 points in that situation. Then that drive after, Joel already mentioned it. You have that throw to Aaron Jones, still a little bit of a crossbody throw. Nevertheless, it's right there, right in front of you. You should be able to hit that. Unfortunately, is not able to hit that one either. You give the ball over to San Francisco. You get that one opportunity, but oh, wait, they have to punt the ball over again. The defense doing their job. You have an amazing run by Aaron Jones. Joel, you and I were on that same wavelength. We felt Aaron Jones coming in was going to have himself a solid game. I wish I was still ballsy, put the over 100 for the 5th straight game. I would have made some nice coin on that one. He has an amazing run. You mentioned it, Andres Carlson missing that field goal. That is killer. I look at Carlson for sure. But then Brock Purdy, terrible all game. Average for his standards. Let me not say terrible. I'm speaking in hyperbole. This was the best drive of the game by far. Throw after throw, play after play. He was playing with the most confidence that he had all game long. And it was a little bit shocking to a degree that he could look as poised and as calm as he did on that drive and look as shaky as he did in that first half and in that third quarter. He looked cool, calm, collected. And Joel, I was mad at you for that engagement ass tweet. I was mad at you. If you don't come up here, we're talking about your replacement. I get it and I respect it. And it probably is true. But when you see him play after play, that throw to Kittle, that Kittle drop it, that's okay because we still go back to you. We know that you're still one of the top tight ends in the game. You go and you're throwing the ball to Conley, who gets his first grab of the game in that big-ass moment. Brandon Ayuk, you already mentioned the dimer and the amazing catch by Ayuk. When you needed him, Brock came up and smacked a home run. They scored a touchdown on that drive, and it's in the hands of Jordan Love. Joel, I hate to say this, your boy came up short. And it's unfortunate because for weeks on end, he's been playing amazing football. Tonight, when they needed him most, unfortunately, he threw the game away. And I know you know that, and I'm not trying to throw salt in a wound, but you look at the field possession that they got on that amazing punt return after a great touchdown drive. Also, you look at that drive before, that first touchdown that they scored, kind of just chucked it up there deep for his receiver to make a play. Was able to get a call. I agree that it was pass interference, but I asked for the play calling if you thought it was good because that was such an amazing play call that just gets Bo Melton wide open there. Nobody near sight. Of course, Jordan Love, execution on point, just drops a nice ball there. Next drive after that, you get the nice kick return. You're still able to make some plays and a nice touchdown drive there. Jordan Love is able to execute a nice pick play to the tight end that gets in for a touchdown. And again, great play call to Aaron Jones as well. Down the stretch of the game, you need to execute. Unfortunately, Jordan Love wasn't able to do so. He made the biggest mistake that you can make as a quarterback, rolling out to your right and throwing left over the middle of the field. You'll learn that through experience. This is his second playoff game. This is his first year starting full time. It's tough to see the Packers season end that way because, John, I only say that because I don't look at the Packers, although it is a team sport. The defense did their job. The offense had to do theirs. The game was right there for Jordan Love to take, and unfortunately, they weren't able to get it done. Great season by the Packers, absolutely no doubt. But if I'm a Packers fan, I'm walking away thinking I should have won this game, not, hey, great season.
Now, Dehls, it might be funny because Jordan Love might have a little bit too much of Brett Favre for the wrong reasons. Just that throw was inexcusable. You know, it wasn't. The play before, though, he dropped a dime over a linebacker and it hit Dobbs and he didn't catch it. You know, I just felt like there was a lot of pressure on Jordan Love to kind of just seal this victory. But John, I understand what you're saying because if you're a Packers fan, you have grown up watching this team lose to the 49ers in playoff moment after playoff moment. Regardless of the expectation of this team, Packers fans don't want to lose to the 49ers. It just is what it is. And this, I feel like, out of all the games that they've played against the Niners in the past couple of years with Aaron Rodgers, this was their best chance. It felt like
By
they
far,
had the most control in this game. Jordan Love wasn't the best down the stretch, but I mean, you can't let Brock Purdy drive down the field and get a touchdown. Based on how you've been playing all game long, you can't do that. That second down play when Brock Purdy had the edge, I mean, there was no edge rusher right there to defend or contain him in the pocket. I mean, that was a brutal mistake. And had they gotten a stop there, it would have been 3rd and long, which is the perfect situation that you want for this offense. I think where the Packers thrived on defense was their defensive line. Kenny Clark had the best game of anybody. He was the star. He was pushing back the interior of this 49ers offensive line all game long. And Purdy did throw some bad passes. But I think obviously when it's pouring as much as it was pouring, I mean, when it's raining, it's hard to grip the ball. So I think some balls just got away from him, but he was throwing some really great passes in collapsed pockets with defenders barreling right in his face because his offensive line is getting pushed back. He was somebody who had a really big impact. The defense did hold up in the run, though, outside of the CMC big time run, which was a touchdown. They did do a pretty good job against the run. I know you can point to the offensive lapses, but I mean, I thought Jordan Love for the most part played a pretty solid game. He played a pretty solid game because there were some throws on 3rd and long that he made that there's just very few players that can make. They didn't have a chance, and he just gave them a chance. You would like him to play better down the stretch, but listen, he's been awesome all year long. And I think amongst Packers fans and most NFL fans, there's really no doubt in how good this guy is.
It's important to note the pressure that both these quarterbacks are under because Zach Tom left the game. And I felt like all night long, you're playing in rain, you're under pressure. They had a run game, unlike CJ Stroud, but I look at Purdy especially. He put it all together once it was like he's able to grip the football. And with Love in that last drive especially, it was kind of just like all year long he's been able to make high-level throws. And it felt like that was just like the one – out of all the great plays he's made this year, that's going to be the way we end it off. But I feel like we should look at both these quarterbacks. And this was their first year starting. They both made history by throwing 30 touchdowns. Only 5 other quarterbacks have done that since 1998. So the company they put themselves in, not only with how well they play up until this point, but the way Purdy stepped up and delivered in the fourth quarter, I think it should be celebrated more than anything else. It's just, as you pointed out, it feels like the season will be defined by that last play for the Packers, unfortunately.
But it's not.
Go ahead, Joel. Go ahead, Joel.
I wanted to ask Riv how he would grade Purdy's performance tonight.
Like a C+. I didn't think he played well. I guess you can point it to the rain. I guess you can point it to the fact that his offensive line was,
Sound familiar, Drew?
Definitely not doing.
No. The thing is, I would be a little bit kinder to Purdy for the idea that when you needed him most, the biggest drive of the game, the biggest drive of the season, the biggest drive of his career, one of the biggest drives in San Francisco history over God knows how long, outside of the one in the Super Bowl, he goes and he steps up to the plate and he smacks a homer. One incompletion that whole drive, and it was a drop. He was playing pretty subpar the whole game, but that one drive alone, you just have to give him nothing but praise. And if I'm the Niners and I'm Brock Purdy, my energy has to be the same. There's nothing I can't do going forward.
Riv, I understand what you're saying, because I mean, am I wrong? Or before that final drive, did you think Purdy kind of had like a D game?
He had an F game.
He was
bad. So you think that drive kind of propelled him from like a terrible to like an average game?
I gave him a C+ because he had the game-winning drive. But if he didn't, that was an F game. That he wasn't good all game.
I'm just glad that we all have quarterbacks up here that keep it close in close moments. They're not blowouts. We watch an entertaining game, fellas.
Hey, listen, I could have pulled a lot worse shots on Jordan Love. I was more respectful than you'll ever know.
What would be
the shots?
What's the shots?
What shots?
No, I'm saying what shots would you have thrown? I think it's hard to throw shots at
Jordan
Love.
Yeah. Do y'all remember the throw on 3rd and 13 to Jennings?
Oh, God. Yes, that was awesome.
Yes,
he had a defender right in his face.
That's the thing. You're calling it a D game when he had some good throws this game.
Then he had two.
definitely
After
had
that, though,
someone's
he had
off
back-to-back terrible throws.
Yeah, that's what blew
After
my
that throw. Okay.
throw.
But
Yeah.
Drew,
Really
I'm
bad one,
curious
the one-
what shots you would, because I mean, there's obviously things out there. Then if you're saying you could have taken shots at Jordan Love, I feel like 2 interceptions suck, but it's hard to take away what Jordan Love did for the last 10 weeks of the season and be like,
Oh,
nah,
no,
I got this. Is the
absolutely.
Even
guy.
in this game, he was
If we're
he
just
was really
talking-
good in this
He
game
played-
for the most
he played
part.
well.
If
That's
played
what-
well.
I say this,
didn't play
I
bad.
say this pretty consistently. It seems like it's a week in, week out thing. It's the tale of two halves in the National Football League. In the first half, I agree with you. That throw on third down that you mentioned to Romeo Doubs, he's scrambling outside the pocket to his weak side, drops a dimer right there to Romeo on the sideline. He had some plays, no doubt about it. But in the second half, he didn't have it. And it's that simple. He had some times that he could have executed. You just had to get in field goal range. He played superhero ball on that last drive for absolutely no reason. He did well more than what he should have. And then that interception, yes, it's unfortunate, the first one. The second one was flat out terrible. Dre Greenlaw, MVP of the game. He was absolutely sensational on the defensive side of the ball for the Niners. Fred Warner had himself a great game too. But you got to be smarter with some of the decisions. He was pretty inaccurate in that second half. There were
He had like
definitely
two inaccurate throws. Yeah, two.
the one to Aaron Jones, the one over to the middle of the field, which I guess if you don't want to call inaccurate and just stupid, I guess sure too. But then of course the one that was behind Aaron Jones and to the tight end over the middle of the field.
It was the interception. It was the third down play. That was the two inaccurate ones that really, led to a bad
Well,
play.
both interceptions.
On that
Here's
play,
my,
they
What's
could
up,
have gone
Riff?
first down.
here's my thing with it. Drew, how mean can you get if Tua has quite literally sucked for 8 quarters?
Why do we bring up Tua? I haven't mentioned, but the thing is, why are we bringing up Tua? I haven't mentioned his name at all.
Because
and I
Because you
haven't been
started
ru-
off this conversation by asking me if the play calling was
yeah, it gave me that vibe.
No, I only
Lil
say
jab,
that with
lil
the
jab.
idea. No, I only say
Undoubtedly
that
a
with
jab.
the idea that I was watching and I felt very strongly that the play calling from the Packers side
That was
was
fantastic.
amazing. It was
Yes.
absolutely
LaFleur's
sensational.
been doing this.
There was definitely moments where Jordan Love executed at a high level. There was definitely moments where he did not execute at all. Now, I say that mostly, Riv, for the idea that you look at these two quarterbacks going head to head, you could say they played around the same at the end of this game. And I say I would lean Purdy because in the biggest moments, he came up and he overcame adversity, playing pretty average in that second half to having the best drive of the season. So I say that also with how is the narrative on Brock Purdy going to look now that he can't play from behind, but in the first playoff game of this season for him, he goes and from behind wins this game. So
Well, I
what's
mean,
the
the story for
conversation on Brock Purdy?
The story for Brock Purdy's not over. I mean, the 49ers season is Super Bowl or bust. That's what it comes down to. The 49ers will not be measured by a divisional round win against a team they were favored by 9.5 points against, and they struggled for the majority of it and almost lost. Let's just start it there. So this
But when
win,
he was down, he
this
came
win-
back and he won.
okay, but this win is not a career-defining win for Brock Purdy. It was a great win. You're on to the next. The 49ers have to win the Super Bowl. They're a top 2 Super Bowl favorite. That's what their season relies upon.
Who
That's
had the
situation.
pressure
He
on
lives to
them
see
in
another
tonight's
day.
game? Was it Jordan Love or was it Brock Purdy?
Brock Purdy.
It was Brock Purdy.
By
Not even
far.
close.
By far.
Yes.
Not even close. So like
Yes.
you guys said, the Packers are playing with house money. They're just there for the ride. But it's embarrassing if the Niners lose to that 7 seed. It is
Because they're
embarrassing.
9.5
They're-
point favorites.
They're 10-point favorites
why.
at home.
But what did he
Bye
do
week.
when his back was against the wall?
Okay, he had the drive, but what I'm saying
He
is,
avoided disaster.
let me ask you guys something.
Avoided
If-
disaster or was near flawless?
I think Jordan
on
Love
that
played
last
better
drive?
for 3 quarters. I think
did.
Jordan Love played
Yeah.
better for 3
Without a
quarters,
doubt.
and
I
then the
agree,
fourth
though.
quarter,
Yeah.
Brock
Yeah.
Purdy got it, and
Wait,
he
hold
got
on,
the win, so it's fine.
Let me ask y'all a question.
Drill.
Before you go, John, if the 49ers make the Super Bowl and they lose to the Ravens, whoever else they lose to, and Brock has a bad game, I mean, do we not sit at a similar spot if they lost today? I mean, it's kind of the same. If he has a terrible game in the Super
not
Bowl,
the same.
I'm not
Not the
saying that
same.
I'm not saying that it's going to
Nowhere near
happen,
the
but I'm
same.
saying their expectation, their season, it comes down to one thing. It's not a divisional round
It
win.
can't look like the first time they played the Ravens. If it
No.
looks like that again, we'll
No.
have the same conversation. If Brock Purdy goes out there and has a game
There's
like
no
this,
way-
there might be a conversation.
Joel, there's a reason why you tweeted out if he does not come up to the plate right now and put this game-winning drive together that we're talking about as replacement, because it's the first round and you're losing to the 7th seed at home. And like you guys, we've all said, he's looked pretty subpar up until that moment. There's no way that it's the same as if you were to fall short in the Super Bowl. It's completely different.
I think if next week it looks similar to this week where they're struggling, they just get a win at the end of the game against a team like Detroit and Tampa Bay, which they should win. And then the Super Bowl, it's just a complete, it depends how it looks. But if it's 3 games like this and they lose, I think people are still going to have that conversation because this team is so talented. That's what, you could have a B- C+ game like this, but the Niners just so much talented than everyone, probably except for Baltimore left in the race right now, that they'll be able to win games just off the talent discrepancy.
And I think that because
in the rain, game-winning drive in the rain without your number one option.
And I think
it was pissing rain for Jordan Love.
No, it's crazy, bro. I swear to God,
right
when Jordan Love got on the field, bro, I swear it started raining 10 times harder. The San Francisco
was definitely. I thought it was raining for both. That's the only reason why I say that.
It was probably an angle you looked at, Dehls. I definitely understand you. It was pouring. I started to pour at a certain time.
It was pouring rain.
Listen, the thing with the 49ers, though, is that it really does come down to Super Bowl or bust for them. Like that just is what their team is made out of. Like, I'm not saying that if they lose, Brock Purdy will be replaced. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that their season really just hinges on one game. That's the reality for them. They have that type of expectation. I do think that next week, regardless who they face, the Lions or the Buccaneers, I think they're going to smack them. I think they're going to blow them out, regardless who it is. It's just not a good matchup. So really, for them, it's the Super Bowl. I think next week is another bye week, personally.
They're going to smack them, even though you said outside of the last drive of the game, Brock Purdy looked mid.
The Packers are better than the Lions. The Packers are better than the Bucs. They're a better team, in my opinion.
Brock Purdy's in a real uncomfortable situation when it comes to just media outlook, because I think you mentioned it. They were 9-point favorites, and they're probably 9-point favorites because they're the more talented team. And I think if they win, you're going to say, well, not you, I'm saying in general, if they win, you're going to say this team is too stacked. If they lose, you're probably going to say, well, they don't have a good enough quarterback. So Brock Purdy is in a situation where he's never going to really get the full blame. He's never going to really get the full credit. Yes. So I think this game specifically, he wasn't playing good. They were down from behind. It was kind of, and I understand the Packers are 7 seeds. They were supposed to win this game for sure. But it was a perfect situation where he wasn't playing good, and that was completely directed to them not winning the game in the beginning. And then he had an opportunity to have a game-winning drive. So it kind of gave him that leeway of, yeah, we get it. It's a 7 seed, but I did something that hasn't happened for the Niners in a long time. So, but he's in a tough situation because the team is so good, and in the NFC, like Joel mentioned, they're better than the Lions. They're better than the Bucs. They could literally go out there and beat the shit out of both teams. So that's how good they are. So it's an uncomfortable situation, but it is Super Bowl or bust. I do believe that, and I believe it's really going to come down to how well he plays. Because if he does play the Ravens, and if it's not his fault, if he has a great game, then you look at the conversation different. But if he plays the Ravens, they get smoked out, and he plays like shit, most of the blame is going to go on him because he's the quarterback.
You want to add on anything to that, John, Dehls, or Drew?
I do worry a bit about the 49ers secondary. I worry about Purdy and crappy weather as well. Those are two things that stood out to me in this game. And I think we've realized over the last 2 months, they're not a world beater. You saw that versus the Ravens. Great win for them, but I don't think they should walk into the NFC Championship game thinking they're heavy favorites. They've got a lot to work on because they didn't look too prepared today. And great win nonetheless. It's good to escape that. But if you're number one, say lose in the divisional round, you're, the biggest disappointment. And that's what we see with Baltimore. It feels like 2019 and this year, that was the biggest question for them.
I do think the Lions and Packers are on similar levels, but I think the biggest advantage the Packers had in this scenario is they play outdoors. Jared Goff, assuming he wins, going to play in San Francisco. That's where I think a big mismatch is there between the Detroit team and the Green Bay team.
And the California
I think Tampa
sun?
Bay. Yeah, look, the weather like today.
It was pissing rain today.
It wasn't great.
But who
weather
knows?
today.
It might not be like that next week.
Can I ask you guys a group question?
Be a little colder for Jared. Jared Goff needs to be in that dome. He needs
Goff
to be
is
in that
from
controlled
California.
environment. Huh?
Goff is from California.
Hopefully Debo plays. That's the big
But
thing.
he's in a dome now.
Yeah.
Dome teams. I don't like traveling outdoors in January for them.
Group question. We talked about grading Brock Purdy. What are we giving Jordan Love today?
See,
This was a C. Yeah. He was at like a B+ before the fourth quarter, I'm going to be honest.
agree.
And then he dropped him down. They dropped him down tremendously.
They both got a C+.
Yeah.
Probably like a C, C minus.
That's for me.
Let me ask you guys a question. The pass interference, you guys
That's
felt
a
like
play.
that was a great decision by Jordan Love?
On third down?
I think that was
Yes.
where he just threw it 70
yeah.
yards down the
Just
field. I think that was
launched
good.
it. Just
I thought
launched
it
that
was
was
the best decision for Jordan Love. It's 3rd and 18. Just take a shot down the field.
It's 1-on-1.
If it's an
Yeah.
interception, it's an arm put. You give your player a chance to catch it or draw a defense pass interference, which is what happened.
Mhm.
I think that
I
was
like that.
perfect
I like
play.
that way more than when offense coordinators are out there and they run a wide receiver screen or a halfback draw. Like at least
I watched it all
let
year.
something
That was,
happen.
I love that more than a quarterback
no.
last week, 4th down through a slant at 4th and 16.
How about the wide receiver screen he missed? Especially to save that drive too. To come back to this because that was a lost drive and Love resurrected it with that one drawn DPI.
8 wide receivers.
Resurrected. I don't know, man. I mean,
with that fumble by Aaron Jones, it could have been a shit show right then and there.
I just don't know if I look at that for me giving credit to Jordan for a pass interference play.
Savvy play.
Just for that
I like
idea
it.
that they got the
The
ball
3rd and
near the
18.
red zone 2 times, one off a pass interference, the other. Which, yeah, I agree. Jordan Love, definitely 3rd and 18. Make a play happen.
What
That's
would you
fine.
have drawn up there, Drew?
No screens. We know he doesn't like
Try and get
screens.
it past the sticks.
He
Get
doesn't
it
like
past the
screens.
sticks.
It's
I
18
definitely
yards.
don't like
It's
screens.
going to take 2-3 seconds to get down the field. You need to protect Jordan Love.
Drew, I'm with you. I hate screens. Them shits are garbage.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not that good unless
hate
it's early
them.
downs.
Listen, I thought
Because
the play,
even look
the play
at
was
screens
fine.
today on both sides. Was there really any success on screens?
Not really.
Even CMC didn't have that great of success on screen passes.
Wait, am I not mistaken? Did that DPI lead to the touchdown that they had?
Absolutely,
Yes,
it did.
next play
But
was
I
nice.
asked in the
then it was a
session.
great
I asked
play.
for the
Yeah.
question.
Oh, yeah,
All right,
that
that's
was
why
the little wheel.
we're
fake screen
giving
wheel.
him praise for that. Is what I'm wondering.
Yes.
I
I
mean,
mean, I'm
okay.
not giving him
Yeah,
praise
I mean-
for it, but I think that's a good. I think that's a good play on 3rd down.
No, ain't it?
yeah.
I'm not like
I mean-
when I'm talking about Jordan Love's game in the offseason, I'm not gonna be like, remember that 3rd and 18 bomb he threw? I'm not gonna talk about it. But like
Remember
in
he
the
got
moment, it's like, that
defensive
was a good
pass
play.
interference and it kept the drive alive.
That was
No,
more
yeah,
than
Hey, I don't know.
everything.
Sometimes you guys surprise me with some of the things that you like and you don't like.
Yeah, you surprised me liking Tua, man. So we're all on the same.
Why is that surprising? It's my brother.
Because he's just not that good, really. That's where Brock Purdy separates himself, though. That
better
play,
than Tua,
that
right?
playmaking.
I gotta
gene,
say, man, I
second
gotta
down.
say, it's pretty crazy how I haven't mentioned his name not once. Not
He
once.
who should not be named.
And we've brought it up from this box over here, that box over here, this box down here. I haven't said a word.
Did you
Why
guys
are we
see that,
feeling so insecure when I haven't
I
said anything?
haven't
about
mentioned
him?
that dude in Miami not once. I hope you're talking about
You
John.
shouldn't, because he wasn't playing tonight.
haven't
He
mentioned
shouldn't
that
be in
dude not
anyone's
once.
mouth.
Did you guys
He
see
wasn't.
that Brock
He wasn't
Purdy,
on the field.
broke the single season passing yards
Who?
for the Brock Purdy?
He broke it all time.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Single season, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, they were airing it out this year, so
Yeah,
it
I
actually
just
makes sense.
want everybody to know that he did that, and they have a plethora of quarterbacks.
You know, when
Yeah,
I was
If I'm Brock
watching,
Purdy,
It's like saying the
apologies, we all
Pacers have,
just
or
spoke
who has the number one offense? The Pacers now. Whoever, it's like they have the best offense in NFL history. It's kind of the same shit.
yeah, no, I know. I mean, it's just that the era they played in was so different. Like Joe Montana
Yeah.
played in a different era where
I don't really want to hear that shit. I'll be
Joe
honest.
Montana
He had a
didn't
great
rack up
statistical
great
year, though.
numbers.
4,500
look at Joe
yards,
Mon-
30 touchdowns.
If you look at Joe
Yo, Rav,
Montana's
he
numbers,
clears Joe Montana.
Listen,
No. Come on, bro.
Jesus Christ.
I don't want to go.
if
too
you look
far.
at Joe Montana's numbers throughout his career, they're not eye popping.
No, yeah, I did.
Not
see-
eye popping.
When I saw the stat, I looked them
Sure
up. I
about
wanted to
performance.
see what it was, and them shits are kind of. But
So-
no,
So I'm reading this comment right here. Is from iGamby. He goes, "I'm gonna need Jordan Love to realize that he can run sometimes." And I felt like I was saying this at my TV because when he threw that pass to Aaron Jones on 3rd and 1, I felt like that was a situation where it's like, listen, just run the ball. Like, just pick up the first down, just run 2 more yards and just pick it up. You know, the pass shouldn't have been inaccurate in the first place. But I do feel like sometimes, like, he's athletic enough. Like, sometimes just go. Like, just put your head down and go get some yardage. That's what I felt like he should have done sometimes. I was watching this game, too, because Charvarius Ward is on the other side, and then we'll segue to the Texans and Ravens talk. But it's unbelievable that the Chiefs develop Charvarius Ward, L'Jarius Sneed, and now Trent McDuffie. Like those are 3 all-pro corners. 2 of them currently play on the Chiefs, but Charvarius Ward developing into an all-pro in San Fran too. Like they know how to develop corners really well.
They have Marcus Peters.
Yeah, like they've always been a secondary factory. Eric Berry played for them, and it's just unbelievable what they could do.
Played for them too.
Tyrann Mathieu
Ravens
was on that squad too.
yes,
Not drafted, but of course he was there. He was amazing.
The Ravens beat the Texans 34-10. Dehls, I'm gonna shift this right to you. Lamar Jackson, 4 touchdowns. What do you got to say?
It was beautiful, man. I don't want to overreact, but Todd Monken, man, he's done miracles on me. He's done miracles on me. He's done miracles on this Ravens offense. To go from, because obviously my 2 guys in this race in the playoffs were Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson.
The black guy.
To go from watching Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense last week against the Blitz to seeing the Baltimore Ravens go against the Houston Texans and their blitz packages this week, it's night and day, the differences between these 2 teams. Where this was a problem all season long for the Eagles, we already knew about that. But they still, even at halftime, when it was the biggest problem of the game where you have to win or go home, still couldn't figure it out. And then you see Baltimore here in the second half just be able to just simple things. You got the running back come in motion, hike the ball. He goes back out. You have a little kind of like a rub route. The other receiver runs a slant just to get a little bit more cushion there. Another one where Justice Hill's in the backfield and he's just going out into the flat. He's able to outrun a linebacker. Just stuff that seems so obvious for a viewer, someone who my experience of play calling goes to Madden, and that's all I have. But if someone's doing the same thing over and over again, I hope at some point I could figure out an answer to it. Lamar Jackson today, he was blitzed a career high 75% of the time, completed 13 of 18 passes, 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. But most impressive was he was more than a full second quicker against the blitz in the second half, 2.25 seconds compared to the first half. 3.5 seconds. The end of that first half, you saw it was a problem. D'Amico Ryans, credit to him. They were throwing all different types of looks, pre-snap, post-snap, changing things, stunts to really get into Lamar Jackson's head, and the offense got completely shut down. Second half, they made adjustments, and we saw Lamar play fantastic. He was accurate. There was really only one bad ball. The throw to looked like to likely Petrie made a beautiful jump on the ball, almost intercepted it. But other than that, Lamar thought was really on point. He had, of course, a couple rushing touchdowns. The one where it was probably, I think it was a quarterback draw, where you see the blitz coming. He stands back there, goes right up the middle for a touchdown. The other third down play where there's a third down, or it might have been fourth down, actually, where it's a fake run to Gus Edwards. They come out on the other side. They ran that for a touchdown and to get a third or fourth down conversion. Yeah. I thought Todd Monken was phenomenal. And the most impressive thing about the Ravens is that for years, they've been in the playoffs, they've been winning regular season games, but that didn't stop them from moving off Greg Roman and going and getting Todd Monken. And that could be the difference of them going home in the second round or AFC Championship game and them going to the Super Bowl. That's the type of difference, I think, in offense coordinators that they've had this season. We see Lamar Jackson, who's going to win the second MVP. First time going to the AFC Championship game, and you just see the passing game. It's so much more advanced than it's ever been. If they had Greg Roman in this game, I don't know how the second half looks. There's a real chance that the Texans could win this game. I know Baltimore's defense shut them down, so they deserve a ton of credit, only giving up 3 points because outside of that kick return, they didn't do anything. But this offense with Todd Monken and the answers they had for the blitz in the second half, that's what changed the game for the Ravens.
You know what I think is so impressive about Lamar Jackson is his ability to control the game without feeling like he's dominating the stats. You look up, he's like, oh, he has 150 passing yards, and it feels like you can't stop him. Like the numbers really don't match his impact. I know the final score was 250 total yards and 4 touchdowns, but for a large part of that, it really feels like the stats don't do him enough justice. And I don't think the story about the Ravens season this year and their improvement offensively has been the improvement of Lamar Jackson. I think it's been the improvement of the scheme and finally putting him in a situation where he can showcase how special his arm talent is. I started changing my tune on Lamar Jackson after the 2021 season, kind of in the middle of there. And with Greg Roman, he offers a lot as a run game designer. And Lamar Jackson peaked as a rusher with Greg Roman, but it held them back a lot from a passing standpoint because the concepts were very elementary. And then you couple that in with the receiving talent just not being there. I think this is the best collection of receivers Lamar has ever had. And there's a reason why he just had his best passing season from my standpoint, my eye test, because 2019 was a unanimous MVP season. It's because of the scheme. It's because of the receivers. And you mentioned it. The blitz was giving them problems in the first half. They haven't been good against the blitz all year. So D'Amico saw that, and that's why he was heating Lamar up. And in the second half, they just had more answers. They had more outs and outlets and hot routes for Lamar Jackson to go to. And then once they found their groove, they didn't take their foot off the pedal. The first matchup that they had, I thought it was close despite the score. This felt like an overwhelming win for Baltimore. At a time, it just didn't feel close. It just didn't feel like the Texans had any chance. The only points they scored was the punt return touchdown by Steven Sims. I mean, this defense, they're special. They're special. Lamar Jackson, the offense, they're special. But the reason why they might win the Super Bowl is because that defense is just suffocating, along with Lamar, of course. But when you have a defense as good as that, I mean, you just kind of have to do just enough offensively, and you know they can get stops.
Real quick, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the Steven Sims punt return touchdown, it looks identical to Antonio Brown. The way he cuts up the field, the way he runs. We cut him for Gunnar Olszewski, worst punt returner ever. But this was actually a really close game in the first half, just like that week 1 matchup, 10-10. And Dehls, you highlighted not Ken Dorsey. They've done a wonderful job this year on the offensive side of the ball, the Ravens. But to me, the biggest takeaway is hire the best college coordinators, because Mike McDonald all day long was getting to CJ Stroud. He was never able to find some sort of rhythm. The first 7 rushes of the game, Devin Singletary, he had 6 yards, less than 1 yard to carry. And it felt like all year at the Baltimore Ravens defense, they weren't great against defending the run, but today they came to play. And they shut down Nico Collins, able to contain him with press coverage, and no one else was able to make a play. You're waiting for the Tank Dell big play over the top. They didn't have that. I think Noah Brown was killed a week ago, so he's not even available. Dalton Schultz has 2 big drops in this game.
Figuratively, not literally.
He got popped. All he was saying, he's got hit. That's all he said.
I know what he said. I know what he said. Just clarifying it.
Hey, you definitely have to clean it up, John. But I understood.
Oh my god!
I feel like it's clear hyperbole when I say that. The Texans didn't have anyone else they can go to, and the biggest X factor for the Ravens is this defense, because in 2019, the main problem was that they gave up 200 rushing yards to Derrick Henry. And that's how they lost 28-12 against a Titan team that was an impenetrable force on the ground. If this Raven defense can control games, they're going to win the time possession battle 40 minutes to 20 sometimes. And that's where Lamar Jackson can, as Joel highlighted, take over a game on the ground. I couldn't tell if the receivers just were open down the field, but they're out of the frame and he wasn't taking the throws. But so often he was making plays on the ground, had 3 explosive runs in the first half. And quite frankly, he is continuing to be the same guy he was as an MVP. He's not changing. And at the end of the day, Lamar Jackson just had a better playoff game than any playoff game that Joe Burrow had.
Spit, John.
And I just want to highlight this because I think this guy is truly coming to his own as the 2nd or 3rd best quarterback in the NFL. He's playing at a clearly superstar level, and it goes so far beyond the numbers. He doesn't have a second receiver, but next week, Mark Andrews can come back into this mix, diversifying this offense. He's done it without his running backs. He's done it without receivers at times. He's done it without a tight end. Quite frankly, he has been the stabilizing force all year long. And with that defense, this Ravens team can easily win a Super Bowl.
You want me to go, Riv?
Yeah, you can go.
Let's give credit to the MVP of this team. That's Lamar Jackson. But where he was putting forth an MVP performance, the MVP of this game was that Ravens defense. To limit C.J. Stroud and their supporting cast, to limit Devin Singletary to only 22 yards on the ground. Nico Collins had himself a respectable game. Dalton Schultz had a pretty bad drop early on in this game, but this offense never really could get going, never really could pick up any consistent steam. And when you're going up against a Baltimore Ravens team with Lamar Jackson playing at this level, it's inevitable. They're going to get theirs offensively, but this defense just being so consistently sound from quarter 1 to quarter 4, there really is not an offense left in the AFC side that if I'm the Ravens, I don't feel like our defense can just stop the opposing offense. And I say that with Mahomes still being left, with Josh Allen still being left. Yes, those are still two great offensive engines in their own right, but you look at the totality of their offenses with the way that Baltimore has been able to just shut down the opposing high-level opponents that they've played. I think after this game now, they're 6-0 against teams with a winning record. I could be mistaken on that stat, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty accurate because every great team that they've played against this season, they've gone and they've been able to achieve a W. Now, I know that they did lose to your Steelers, but I don't know if they were 500 at the time.
Lost the
But
Browns.
the Browns was another one. Were they over 500 at the time?
I think so.
Okay, so then
That was the only one.
That was
Gotcha.
week
So
4.
okay, or which is also possible. But I say that with the idea that this Baltimore Ravens defense just looks like a force to be reckoned with. And with the way that Lamar Jackson, you see Zay Jones getting involved a little bit too. You see Rashad Bateman, Isaiah Likely. These are all guys that Lamar Jackson is just trusting right now. And a credit to Isaiah Likely, who's come in these last few weeks in the absence of Mark Andrews, has been able to elevate his game. You mentioned the pass where it was a little bit questionable, where Petrie made a nice break on it. You see the respect and the connection that Isaiah Likely and Lamar Jackson have, where Isaiah's telling him, lob it next time. Just give me a little bit of a shot at it. I'm a big boy. Give me an opportunity to high point. That touchdown that they had later on in the game, what was it? A nice high point over Derek Stingley. Thank you very much, Jay Gamby. 10-3 against team over 500. That's an unbelievable record. And with the way that the defense has been playing all season long, with the way that we just saw Houston dismantle the Cleveland Browns defense, for them to put on this defensive virtuoso, I mean, what more can you ask for of the Baltimore Ravens? This was a result that we expected, maybe not the domination factor, but Joel, I'll give you your credit. 10 points. I think you called 14. This was such a masterclass from the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, you mentioned the coaching staff, Joel. I'll be shocked that this coaching staff is kept together next season, because with the way that they're dominating, with the way that this offense has changed with Todd Monken and McDonald on the other side, both these guys should be candidates to be head coaches in their own right. They've just been a part of such a tremendous group of guys. The Baltimore Ravens just look like the team right now that I firmly believe are coming out of the AFC.
Oh, that's not a bad take, Drew. You know, I think the Ravens definitely.
It's an easy one.
I wouldn't say easy, but definitely showed out for sure. 'Cause I talked a lot about the Ravens and their defense, and this watching the Packers and watching the Texans felt like night and day for me. You know, the Packers were able to have a run game to kind of coexist and pair with Jordan Love's passing game, as opposed to the Texans. They couldn't get anything on the run. You know, and I feel like Tank Dell was really missed in this matchup specifically because, you know, they were able to double impress Nico Collins. Dalton, he had a couple drops, but for the most part, he was contained too. They weren't really able to get in rhythm, get in groove. Stroud was running out the pocket. He was, you know, pressured a lot, and the Texans didn't look comfortable. You know, and shout out to the Ravens defense. You know, they played a tremendous game. For Houston, to me, this just felt like a talent disparity here. Like, you just felt like the Texans weren't talented enough to compete with the Ravens. They're not ready for that stage, and that's nothing wrong. Same thing with the Packers. It's the same thing for the Texans. They had a magnificent season. You know, they won the division. They were able to climb back. They can hang their heads high. They lost to the Baltimore Ravens. It's fine. But the offensive line couldn't hold up. Defensively, they were great in the first half. In the second half, they couldn't make no adjustments. The Ravens started to get it going. They couldn't get in the pass game. They couldn't get nothing in the run game. You know, and this was the first time I've seen C.J. Stroud rattled this year, you know, for sure. But I think Baltimore right now has the perfect combination to come out the AFC. You know, they have a mixed balance on offense with their pass game, with their run game. And follow me. I got a little NBA analogy because Lamar reminds me of Steve Nash a little bit in the way he just can control the game. You want him to shoot more, he can shoot with controlling the game. You want him to be working more in the pick and roll, he could do that. In transition, he can do that. Same thing with Lamar. In the pass game, with his feet, you want him to stay composed in the pocket, he could do that. You want him to run out the pocket, make a play for himself or others, he can do that. Just a variety of ways Lamar is able to control the clock, control the game. You basically can put out any playbook, he can run it against any defense. He's unstoppable. He can do more with less, and that's what you love to see from a player of that caliber. And Lamar is just, like you mentioned, Drew, he is the MVP. He should be the guy that get his second MVP. And this is a big year for him, you know. 2 MVPs, no ring looks a little crazy. He mentioned it. He said he was a little too old. He wants to get that ring. So this is, if it's going to be a year, and we keep saying it, it will be this year, because the AFC is such a wild race right now. But Baltimore probably has the best team in the league right now. So shout out to them for pulling out a great win.
Let
The
me clean up
Ravens-
the stat. I apologize. Let me clean up the stat that I was saying. They're 6-2, excluding that Week 18 versus the Steelers against teams in the playoffs. And both of those teams that they lost to were in their division, which is something that you can respect. The point differential, 121. I mean, they've just been on a different level.
So the Ravens defense had 12 different pass rushers, generated pressure and averaged their third quickest time to pressure of the season, 2.40 seconds. This according to Next Gen Stats. Justin Matabuke recorded a team high 4 pressures, 3 of which came against 11 matches versus Shaq Mason. So the defensive pressure was on CJ. And this year, the Texans, they have not been a good offense under pressure. And I think the Ravens and the Chiefs are the 2 smartest defenses left in the playoffs. It feels like they just have a step on their offensive opponents. And that's kind of how it felt like to me. It felt like the Ravens were all over what Bobby Slowick wanted to do offensively. It felt like they were sniffing out screens. Kyle Hamilton, the near interception, for him to sniff out a fake of a fake. I mean, Kyle Hamilton, he's one of the best players in the league right now. They just had a step on him, really. And I don't know who's going to win tomorrow between the Chiefs and the Bills. I got the Chiefs. Their defense is the second best defense left, and Steve Spagnuolo coordinates that. So if the Chiefs face the Ravens, that's going to be a defensive matchup. I mean, that's going to be a real chess match.
It was crazy that the Ravens had 0 sacks and 11 pressures because Stroud every time is the same site. And I kind of wondered, too, if that's the last game Bobby Slowick's ever going to coach the Texans, too, because it's true he got cooked, but the creativity in his designs is a little bit like West Coast-esque. That one Kyle Hamilton play was a deep drop double sell of the flat routes to each side. And if that's the case, I feel like Houston, this was a huge year for them to break through, and losing Slowick potentially to him become a head coach, that could be the biggest loss, like Shane Steichen last year for the Eagles. That could set their offense back with a defensive-oriented head coach, because D'Amico has done a wonderful job, and him versus Mike McDonald on both sides was like a masterclass. But that's something to monitor here. Like losing Bobby Slowick, it could be a massive, massive loss to this Texans team. And for as much talent they have, they're going to get back some guys like Tank Dell next year. Their offensive line really missed Titus Howard. I mean, the entire right side was a shell of itself. And also 11 penalties too on the day. That's kind of another thing that doesn't get mentioned enough.
Yo, that M&T Stadium was rocking.
Yeah.
Rocking. They were going crazy.
This is a stat that you're going to like, Mr. Dehls. I don't know if you're going to mention a stat next time you talk, but I want you to know it. So he faced a career high. He faced a career high 75% blitz rate. So that's how much they blitzed
that already.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Dehls.
So the same.
I dropped my battery. Dehls, of course, was going to be on it. Sorry. I missed
it. Might have been the opening thing I said was that stat.
I missed it. Something
it was obvious watching the game. They were sending heat consistently.
Yes.
They were trying to get after Lamar, make him uncomfortable. They did a decent job of that in the first half, but second half, Lamar just took over.
Yeah.
The Bobby Slowick point is interesting. I think much like the Packers, the Texans should be proud of their season, though. I mean, they had no expectations. They made the playoffs, much like the Packers. The real difference in these two teams is that one is manned by an offensive head coach and one is a defensive head coach. So you always got to be wary of losing a coordinator that was so great.
It's the worst thing ever. That's really one of the worst parts of the NFL in hiring a defensive head coach, because your offense has a certain time span of being great and being elite, and finding that next offensive coordinator to just come in and plug in is pretty damn difficult, and that was case in point over there in Tennessee.
And you see this with
CJ's
every
that dude,
CEO
though.
coach too.
CJ's amazing.
CJ's that dude. But also, I think at the end of last season, we all would have said Jalen Hurts is that dude. And we saw them struggle at the end of this season, the way they went out. So, yeah, I mean, you just don't hire Brian Johnson. And the latest report that I heard was that the changes on the Eagles, off topic, but the changes for the Eagles were going to be on the defensive side of the ball. Brian Johnson might retain his job at offensive coordinator. I don't know if Sirianni's going to call plays then. Oh,
So give Matt Cannon a run for his money,
God
though.
bless him.
But to your
God
point
bless
though
him.
about the stat that you mentioned earlier about the blitz, Lamar having a quicker time to throw in the first half versus the second half,
Full
that's
second, yeah.
that's a scheme thing. That's a scheme thing, and that's something that we haven't seen Brian Johnson adjust to.
And it was obvious when you were watching the game too. Like he was getting out, he had a play to Zay Flowers where he ran some sort of, I don't know if it was like a zig, maybe he faked out, went back in, then the place of the running backs in the flat. It's stuff like that. And when you're blitzing that many players, you have one-on-one coverage, you break a tackle, you could turn that play into 10, 15, 20 yards. We saw that with Justice Hill. If Justice Hill can do it, why can't you scheme stuff up for, Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert and all these dudes you have?
So I was going to mention this earlier, Drew, when you shouted me out for the 15-point thing about me
14.
calling that for this game. Yeah. So
Oh.
my final score for this game was 24-13. So it was 11. It was close to 14. Still would have covered the spread though. The Packers and 49ers final score 23-17. And I remember when, I first laid out that score, you guys were like, that's really low. And this ended up being a pretty low scoring game. This was a defensive game, even though I will say, I think because the 49ers didn't have as much offensive drives as usual, it felt like their offense took a step back. But in the first quarter, I believe they only had 2 offensive drives.
Yeah.
Like they
The
were
Packers
not
were on the field
Yes.
forever. They were just third down, picking
Yeah.
up. Like they were constantly, their drives just went on and on. And the Niners were not able to sustain anything.
Yeah, Green
Drew-
Bay controlled the clock.
Yeah.
It's true. Joel, I think I felt like you did that on purpose saying 23-17 because when the Niners won a 3-game skid week 6-8, all 3 weeks they scored 17 points.
Oh, yeah?
And 2 of the 3 games, Browns 19-17, next game 22-17.
Wow.
So when I heard you say that, I'm like, I think he picked 17 on purpose.
Should have been a lucky number, man.
Who you got winning tomorrow for both games while you're here?
The Chiefs and Lions.
Actually,
I
I had the Bills winning tomorrow. And I expect Josh
Team
Allen to
Buffalo.
outplay Patrick Mahomes.
You thought
Buffalo.
There's still time. Change the pick.
I'm gonna pray on it. I'm gonna sleep on it. I'm gonna hope and pray that I get that answer delivered to my brain. Lord knows I want the Chiefs to lose. However,
stay on that side, man.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'd rather pick the
Reverse
Chiefs and then
psychology, manipulate your team.
It's unfortunate, Drew. The graphic has already been released, my friend.
Once the graphic is out,
Only one guy's allowed to change his pick after
that
making it. I
is
understand.
sick.
That's
That
the
is
perk
sick.
of dating the girl who makes
The
our
graphic
graphics.
designer.
And I respect it. Last thing I'll say before we go, shout out to Moms, Niner fan, of course.
Shout out
She
to
watches. She was very happy that Joel was not right in this scenario. Of course, all jokes aside, love you, Ma, and I'm happy that you got this W. Hopefully the Niners can pull it out for you, Queen.
I was very distraught with the final score, man. I was getting ready
I understand.
I was getting ready, man. Jess, I was watching the game with her and I was watching the game with JC as well. And Jess was humbling me because when the Packers were up and they pulled out that stat, I said, babe, I got to make this graphic now. It was the graphic of the Reaper, the death guy going door to door.
And
then the last
Hurts.
one was Purdy. So I said, babe, we got to make this graphic now. I just got a feeling. And she told me, nah, you're going to jinx it if you do. And I was like, you know what? You're right. She was humbling me. And then they lost anyway. I was like, I should have just made the graphic regardless. I feel like maybe that would have brought different luck.
I am extra happy that Brock Purdy did this so that graphic couldn't come into fruition. Because again, I knew what the narratives were going to be if he lost this game. That drive was legacy saving. It was that big of a drive from Purdy.
Well, this is the last thing that I want to bring up, and then we can go. It's a tweet, and I want to get your thoughts on it. So David Lombardi, who covers the 49ers beat for The Athletic, tweeted this. Brock Purdy answered every single doubt and criticism by delivering a comeback playoff drive that has immediately become part of 49ers legend. That's what Joe Montana used to do.
Strong words. Strong words. I understand the sentiment. He spoke very strongly. However, I will say he answered criticisms because the biggest narrative on his name was that he could not play from behind. And what did he do? He answered the call and won the game in a situation where he played pretty subpar a majority of this game, and in the biggest moment, he was a 10 out of 10 on that drive. I get what he's saying, strongly worded though, and bringing up Joe Montana is already going to make Niners fans and just football fans' blood boil, but he was the definition of clutch tonight.
Joe Montana's best year was 3,000
Stop,
yards.
Riv, relax.
Maybe the best player in the Super Bowl. That's what matters, man.
31 TDs, 13 interceptions, 3,000 yards. Sounds cool.
Didn't Brock Purdy just do that?
I
Is
think
he
he
the
did.
best
Basically
quarterback
just
in the
had
Super
30
Bowl?
and 10 or whatever he threw.
Huh? Would you say, Drew?
No, John. I thought John said that he's the best quarterback in the Super Bowl.
Who, Joe Montana?
He's definitely up there for sure. I mean, I just would automatically put Brady, but that's just me.
Brock
Joe
ain't
Montana got 5 rings. Listen, having 4, my apologies, 4 rings. Brock Purdy, it's a nice drive. Colin Kaepernick had drives. You know what I mean? Like there's been
Shout out
dudes
Smith.
there's been dudes that's
The
had
first
drives throughout
Alex
NFL
Smith
history.
Saints. That was
Alex
like
Smith
Colin
has had
Kaepernick
drives.
was so goated, man.
Just
that
because you have
season was
some
beautiful.
drives and you're part of a year's history, if that year doesn't finish with the Super Bowl, no one's going to care about this drive.
Is
Talk
Joe
about it.
Montana getting the plumber allegations?
Yeah, I saw this from BXD Wine. No, he's not. No, should not be. Do you know how hard it was for people to finally admit that Brady was the GOAT? Even after he won that Super Bowl versus the Seahawks, they still were not willing to just completely deem him the best ever. He had to do it again against the Falcons and pull off the greatest comeback victory in Super Bowl history for people to finally recognize him as the GOAT.
I'm just glad we could take Purdy away from those Jimmy G conversations.
Agreed.
Because that shit is dead in the water. That's all the allegations I needed to be.
John, go look at the record when Shanahan's behind. That's with a lot of that is with Buffalo.
You know what's funny about that record is that somebody did a deep dive into it, and while Shanahan's record gets highlighted in that moment, like he's 0-50, like 99% of the league in like a 50-game sample size at most has like 3 wins in those situations. So it's really not just like a Shanahan choke thing. Like when you're down going into the fourth,
knock 'em, I guess.
when you're down going into the fourth, I mean, almost every team kind of loses in that situation. But yeah, I thought it was a funny how they debunked that. It was before, of course, tonight that I found that stat out. But I think it's interesting. Is the narrative now warranted though? Because I mean, he did struggle for a large part of the game, and before this game, playing from behind has kind of been the Niners' crutch. I mean, I think that is warranted. That was a weakness.
I will not be. I mean, I'm not worrying about it. The narrative was there, but again, he put that to bed in the first game of the playoffs. It's reminiscent of that. Of course, he's not the caliber of a Matthew, but the allegations on Matthew Stafford's name, even though he had game-winning drives out the ass, he's still one of the league leaders, the league active leaders right now in game-winning drives. There was allegations on his name in that playoff run, 3 game-winning drives in that run there. He's starting his off the right way, playing pretty average, and when you need him most, a perfect drive. I mean, it's definitely, like Riv said, maybe we don't wipe him completely away, but at least for this week, not a single word about it. I'm not worrying about it going forward. I just think he needs to keep the mindset that he had in that last drive for the entirety of the next round. And if they were to win, the Super Bowl, of course, because he showed what he can be on that last drive. And that was a great quarterback, that last drive, excuse me.
So we'll be back here tomorrow night after the Chiefs and Bills game to recap the Sunday games of the divisional round weekend. John will be joining us as well. Riv, I think will be joining us as well. Yes,
maybe.
No, maybe.
You never know.
No, he will not be. I'm calling it now. He will not be.
I'm gonna just leave it as a surprise.
Okay. Well, the surprise will be if the Bills lose and you show up. That would be the surprise.
I'll leave it as a surprise. I'm gonna spoil you guys. I don't know yet.
Riv, we're familiar with your game.
Talk to him. Talk to him, John.
I'm all about breaking breaking the narrative. So
breaking the mold. Respect.
All right, so we'll see you guys tomorrow night. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, join our playback, link in description as where we go live right after the game. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.